Most ethical systems ask what produces the best outcome. Kantian ethics asks a fundamentally different question: what is our duty? This presentation explores deontology not simply as a moral theory, but as a carefully constructed architecture built upon reason, universality, and moral law. Deontology comes from the Greek word deon, meaning duty. Unlike utilitarianism, deontology does not measure morality through consequences. For Kant, the morality of an action depends entirely on whether it's performed from duty according to rational moral law. Outcome becomes secondary, intention becomes sensual. Kant argues that intelligence, courage, or even happiness can be used for destructive purposes. Only one thing remains unconditionally good: a good will. An action possesses genuine moral worth only when it's performed from duty rather than self interest or personal inclination. Kantian ethics is built upon autonomy. A moral agent does not simply obey external authority. Instead, rational individuals give moral law to themselves through reason. This distinction becomes critical. For example, a shopkeeper who acts honestly for profit behaves legally, but a shopkeeper who acts honestly because honesty is morally right possesses moral worth. Hypothetical and categorical imperatives. Kant separates imperatives into two categories. Hypothetical imperatives are conditional. If you desire something, then you perform a specific action. But the categorical imperative is different. It's universal, unconditional, and independent of personal desire. For Kant, this becomes the essential equation of morality itself. Universal law. The first formulation of the categorical imperative introduces the principle of universal law. Act only according to the maxim that you could rationally will to become universal law. This transforms ethics into a test of logical consistency. Morality must function universally, not selectively. Kant demonstrates this logic through the example of lying. Suppose everyone lied whenever it was beneficial. Trust would collapse completely, language itself would lose reliability, and others. And the action destroys the very system it depends upon. This is what Kant calls as a contradiction in conception. Therefore, lying becomes morally impermissible. The second formulation focuses on human dignity. Human beings must never be treated merely as instruments or tools. Every rational person possesses intrinsic worth. Manipulation, exploitation, and deception violate human autonomy because they reduce individuals to means rather than ends. Kant imagines morality as a kingdom of rational beings. In this moral community, every individual acts simultaneously as both citizen and legislator of universal law. Morality therefore becomes collective rational self-legislation, not obedience through fear, but order through reason. The divide between Kantian ethics and utilitarianism becomes clear. Utilitarianism prioritizes outcomes and collective welfare. Kantian ethics prioritizes duty, rights, and moral consistency. For utilitarianism, rights may sometimes be overridden for greater utility. For Kant, certain moral boundaries remain absolute. One of the most controversial example in Kantian ethics is the murderer at the door. If a murderer asks where your friend is hiding, should you lie? A utilitarian would likely lie to save a life. A Kantian ethics, however, argues that moral law cannot bend according to consequences. Even under extreme conditions, duty remains binding. This example reveals both the power and rigidity of the ontological ethics. However, in this example, you can tell to the murderer another true information, like I saw my friend 2 hours ago around the river or something else. The architecture of the Deontology possesses remarkable strengths. It strongly protects human dignity, rights, and moral consistency. Its influence can still be seen in constitutional law, human rights theory, and modern democratic systems. Yet critics argue that its structure can become inflexible in complex situations. Even so, Kantian ethics remains one of the most influential attempts to construct morality upon reason itself.